Hello and welcome to Window on the World, a show that shares the experiences of Missouri Southern students and faculty who have taken the opportunity to study abroad. I'm your host, McKinzie Payton, and today I have with me some folks from the art department who studied photography and art in Sweden this summer. How are you guys doing today?
Good, Neil.
Thanks.
I'm doing great, thank you. So to start off, I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves and tell the audience what your major is or what you do here at Missouri Southern.
My name is Shelby Moe. I'm a fine arts major with an emphasis in printmaking.
I'm Kyle Mckenzie. I teach painting here. I'm an assistant professor in the art department.
Okay, so to start off, tell me a little bit about what this trip is. Is it a class or what you did, what the goals of the trip were?
Oh, okay. It's a long-standing trip. I might be one of the longest on campus. I can't remember the exact
We're 24
number.
years.
24 years, is that right? So the art department's done this for 24 years. And it's a long trip, too. So they go to, every year we take somewhere between 5 and 10 art students. Primarily, the trip's called Summer in Sweden. We primarily spend our time in Sweden, and we visit other Scandinavian capitals as well, and then also a European capital most years. So the students that we take get 6 credit hours. They take one class taught by the faculty member that takes them. So it's a Scandinavian art history course, basically. Art of Scandinavia, it's called. So we go to a lot of art museums, and they do some of the work when they get back. But the other thing that's really unique that we offer is there's a photographer at a school that we stay at in Sweden named Aurion who teaches a darkroom photography class, and he's a very renowned artist and a great teacher as well. So they get a darkroom photography class and Art of Scandinavia course out of it.
So was this your first time abroad?
No. In 2011, I went to Germany for about the same amount of time.
So how did it feel going back to Europe?
I was so excited. I love going to Europe. I love it so much. I think I was more excited than a lot of the other kids.
And were you going back to Europe for this trip?
I've actually been, this is the 4th time I've been on the trip. I was a student here years ago, and I actually went on the trip twice as a student in 2001 and 2004, I believe. And then this is the 2nd time that I've gone as faculty. So I've become pretty familiar with a lot of the parts of it.
So what made you decide to take this particular trip as opposed to, say, the Art in Korea, which I know was another trip that was taken this summer?
Part of it was the length. So this was a much longer trip, which was what I really wanted. Art in Korea sounded very fun, but by the time you got over jet lag, it was already time to come home. And this summer, the trip to Korea was more focused on ceramics, and ceramics doesn't really fit with me. And also, too, I've done darkroom photography before, and I wanted to have another opportunity to do that.
Where were you guys staying while you were on this trip?
In the capitals, it was in hotels, and then we have dorm rooms at the school in Sweden.
The school's called
Mulcha Folkhögskola.
Yeah, she can pronounce it way better than I can. The Folkhögskolas there are a lot of them in Sweden, and they're not all arts centered, but this particular one is kind of primarily it's sort of like a 2-year arts college, basically. Not only art, but kind of a focus of it is art. And so we get there right after the semester for them. So we do get a little bit of interaction with some years more than others with some of the students there and with the faculty and staff at the place. It's a small town also. It's sort of a good balance of we go to the larger cities for sort of longer weekend trips, and then during the week we come back to this sort of relaxing, picturesque town to do work in between things.
So was there a lot of opportunity to explore the town while you after classes, but during the week?
Oh, yes. There was always time. Our classes weren't all day, every day. Some days it was just go out and shoot, or Aurion had something he had to do, so we wouldn't meet till the afternoon. So there was plenty of time to just run through the woods.
So what were your classes like?
The photography class, we would start in just a normal classroom. He would explain the basics with us or talk about actually making the prints. And then after that, we were free to go downstairs and work, and he would sit in there and look over our work as we were making it.
What was the thing that you most enjoyed about working with Aurion or taking the classes in general?
He's so quiet and so like grandfatherly, but yet he has the best like bits of wisdom and advice, and I feel like I learned a lot even though he never said a lot.
So what were your favorite trips that you took? I know you said you took a lot of them outside of the town during the weekends. What were some of your favorites?
Probably Oslo, Norway. We went to the Vigeland Mausoleum, and there was a like a metal record store that I wanted to go and see, and I was able to do it because it was just so close to our hotel.
Did you have a favorite?
Probably the same. I mean, I love those cities. Stockholm's one of my favorite cities in the world, but the Vigeland Mausoleum in Oslo was just so incredible. It's an artist that lived there who designed his studio as this sort of large barrel vaulted room that has just, he covered the whole inside with murals, and it's just a very strange, interesting place. Its acoustics are really odd, so the smallest sound will echo for like half a minute in there, and so you can't carry on normal conversations. You can't, the 10 of us walking in sounded like an army was walking through the place. So that was just a really unique thing to find that I had. Being my 4th time on the trip, this is the first time we've been there, so it was really exciting to find a new thing like that.
So we've got some pictures that you guys gave us for to show on the window on the world. So I'd like to bring those up and have you guys kind of explain what's going on in each of them.
Okay, we'll do our best.
That looks like the train station in Jönköping.
Yeah, that's the train station in Jönköping. We spent a lot of time waiting on the train there because it was the town. It's about a 20-minute or so train ride from where we were staying. So it sits right on the end of one of the, I think it's the 2nd largest lake in Sweden. Sweden has a lot of very large lakes, but so it sits right on one of the largest ones. That's that view. That is the Gustav Vigeland Sculpture Park, and also in Oslo, Emanuel Vigeland, who built the mausoleum. It's called the mausoleum, by the way, because his remains are there still. But his brother was more famous than he was, and he built, I think the Gustav Vigeland Sculpture Park, if I'm not mistaken, is, maybe you remember this, I think they said it was the largest sculpture park devoted to one artist in the world. So there's, just hundreds of his sculptures there. It's a really interesting place. It's the Stave Church, I think.
Yeah. We went to the Norwegian Folk Museum on our way out of Oslo, and so it had a lot of their like traditional houses and stuff, and they had an original stave church there that I think 1400s.
I want to say, yeah. It was. It's one of the gift shops in Gamla Stan in Stockholm. So the Gamla Stan means old town, and Stockholm's a city sort of built on a few islands, and the oldest one is here. The street that these shops sit on are very narrow. We would probably call it an alley now, but it's kind of there's still perfectly intact cobblestone and old buildings that are, I think, maybe like 1,000 years old. And so they have a lot of, it's kind of touristy, but it's an interesting touristy spot.
I think that's more of Stockholm.
I think you're right, yeah. That's just a view of some of the common city streets in Stockholm, yeah. Also Stockholm. I would go walking, I love walking around in Stockholm, even though it takes forever to get anywhere because of all the islands. You have to always find a bridge or something. But this is from one of the Long Islands that has an amusement park and a couple of museums. So looking across, I'm not exactly sure what that building is, but that's the sort of main, looking towards the kind of main city center of Stockholm.
I think that could either be Belgium or that could be Stockholm.
I'm actually not sure what that is.
Yeah, it's graffiti on a building.
Is that yours?
Yeah.
That is Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's in Brussels. Oh, I see it says up the top.
This one's
That's the
Brussels.
view, yeah. Just the thing that was really interesting about Brussels, I think, is that all the buildings were different, but sandwiched in together.
Mm-hmm. Copenhagen.
On the way to Copenhagen, you have the Louisiana Museum of Art outside of Copenhagen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great museum with a great collection, but it's also just in a really beautiful setting.
More Copenhagen.
I didn't go there. I don't know what that was.
I don't either. I'm not 100% sure, but it's like, I mean, it looks like that part of Copenhagen where all the museums were.
Yeah.
There was a slide at the Louisiana, like a really long one that you could just, which seems weird because it was a very like high class museum.
But yet there's a big slide.
So before we go, I'd like to ask you guys, what kind of advice do you have for students who would like to study abroad?
That you should just do it. It's worth it. There's always money to be found to pay for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think when you're a student, it can feel, because I did it, as a student, it can feel like stressful to try to scrape together the money. It can feel like you can't be gone that long. But in the end, I don't think anyone ever regrets it. I mean, it's just, I don't ever think back to the money I spent. I mean, granted, you have to think about it at the time. But it's just it's an experience that it's not very easy. Once you graduate, once you're, maybe have a full-time job or a family, or even just having to pay for it without, financial aid. Most of our trips, there's substantial financial aid for. It's just not easy to spend 5 weeks abroad, at another time. So I think it's always a good idea to embrace those things. It's something specifically here at Missouri Southern, but just regardless of the institution, taking advantage of any of those sorts of opportunities is always, gonna be worth it in the long run.
I want to thank you guys for being on, and we're going to take a quick break and come back with some more students who went on the same trip.
Yeah.
Hey, give me that back!
Make me! Want it back? Here!
I could have done the same to you, but I chose wiser.
Thanks, Rory.
Bullying shows weakness, not strength. Remember to tell, yell, run, or defend yourself if you have to.
Nobody should get bullied.
That's right, Rachel. That's right.
Hello and welcome back to Window on the World. I'm your host, McKinzie Payton, and we have with us for this part another student who went to the same Sweden trip. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you. So, like we did before, I'd like to have you introduce yourself and tell the audience your major.
Okay. My name is Kat Weltha, and my major is General Studies.
So, was this your first time in Sweden or in Europe in general?
Yeah. It was my first really serious trip abroad. I've been on a cruise before, but it's not the same thing, because you just kind of get to see the port cities and that. And with this trip, we got to really interact with the culture and see the towns, the different people, and really get involved. So
So as a general studies major, what made you decide to take this trip?
It was a couple things. Because at first I had thought to myself, well, you know, I can go to Sweden on my own. But the more I thought about it, I was like, sure, I can, but I never will. So this was really the only opportunity I felt that everything was going to fall into place for me to be able to really go out and be there for multiple weeks at a time. So that was really the main thing that attracted me to it.
So we've got some more pictures that we'd like to get through. So we're going to pull those up, and you can pitch in on what was going on.
That's
Looks like it's in Belgium.
Ghent, Belgium. Remember that tired afternoon?
It was so hot in Ghent. It doesn't sound like a country that would, like, Belgium's not a hot country, but it was so hot when we were there, so like my entire memory of Belgium is just sweating. This is the horticultural gardens in Gothenburg. They have this big, like, Victorian era like greenhouse glass house, and they've got like palm trees growing in it in Sweden of all places, and all these different sort of exotic to us different plants and things that I found when I was walking around Gothenburg. It's in this big botanical gardens that they have kind of in the middle of the city.
Oh, that's on in Mulchwa, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly. The town that we stay in. That's it sits on a lake, also a very beautiful lake, and there's these docks that people use as swimming docks or fishing or just to go out and enjoy it. So that's what that is. It's just a few minutes walk from the school. That must be the border.
Yeah, between Sweden and Norway. There's this big bridge that crosses over the river, and we had a bus driver who took us to all these different cities, and he lets us out on the Sweden side of the bridge, so we get to like walk over to Norway. You jump back and forth over the border and just kind of play around. But it's this really beautiful river with all these bluffs around it, and it's just a gorgeous spot.
There's the border. High security, right?
No wall.
No wall, just a line on the cement.
This is there's a cat on campus, and nobody really knows his name. Some of the kids were calling him Tiger. I decided his name was Leopold, but he's super friendly, and we'll walk up, and it's nice to just have a little creature around, like a pet that kind of will let you pet it. And
it's also cool that we've been doing the trip for so long that we have other students that already knew this cat. So like multiple years of students have had this sort of temporary pet over there. It's just the woodlands around everywhere in Sweden is beautiful, I think. This is just a few minutes from the school. There are hiking trails that go in basically every direction from the school. So this is just on one of those. Oh.
These are the when we first got to Sweden, there were like these flowers kind of everywhere, but then like the longer we were there, like the bigger the blossoms got, and they really like just cover the entire countryside, and they come in like pretty much any color you can think of. They're like pinks and purples and oranges, and some of them are like blue and white, and they're just everywhere, and it became like just a really cool thing to see is how these flowers were just all over the place. This one actually, that was the view outside my dorm window. So I could like open up my blinds and my windows, and I had that every day. So that was really great, because like you feel like you're kind of in the countryside, but you've got like the town within walking distance, and it's just a really beautiful place to be.
More of the woods. Spent a lot of time walking in the woods because it's so, it's so accessible and peaceful.
This is the Trinity Church in Oslo. When we went to Oslo, there was this one spot that I wanted to find, because my husband's really into Top Gear, and there was this time they were in Oslo, and I wanted to find this one fountain that they'd been at and take a picture of it for him. And along the way between our hotel and that place, I found this big like cathedral type church with this big dome, and it's one of the pictures I took of it. This is my favorite sculpture from the Vigeland Sculpture Park. It's called Man Attacked by Babies. And I think it really gives you a sense of just how strange Gustav Vigeland was. Because
his brother there was a lot of baby juggling in the Norwegian Norwegian artwork.
It's been an interesting childhood that led to that.
Yeah.
This is another picture of the Stave Church in Norway at the Folk Museum.
Yeah, it was sort of a living history museum. So they'd moved buildings from all around the country and from various time periods and reconstructed them there outside of Oslo.
This was at we went to Kostaboda Glassworks, where they do like traditional glass blowing. And we got to see them actually like making some pieces, and it was a really interesting place and interesting process. And I think it's been there since like 1700 and something.
Something like, yeah.
I think 1742. So like this one specific glass shop has been there longer than our entire country has been a thing. So
that part of Sweden has had a long tradition of glass blowing. I think it's in recent years a lot of it, that sort of stuff has been outsourced, and they are getting our appetite for cheaper replacements for the crafts. But there is still some, a fairly strong glass blowing industry.
This is just another view, and I think that one's got the date on it. But I believe there was Costa Glassworks and then Boda Glassworks, and at some point they combined to kind of keep the company alive.
And it looks like we're back. So there were a lot of pictures there. Since you guys did a photography seminar, what was your favorite picture that you took while you were in Sweden?
Mine was, and of course, my favorites are some of them that we actually printed, and of course, I don't have a scanner, so I didn't scan any of those in. But my favorite picture is, there was a time Aurion took us to this big mill. It was like a blacksmithing mill.
Oh, yeah.
And it had like a giant hammer in it that the mill it wasn't functioning, but it would turn and this giant hammer would up and down. But I think you and me and Brett had gone to try to find this place the day before. So when we actually got there the next day with Aurion, everyone else kind of wandered off, and I was like, well, I want to get a closer look at the mill, and so I went to look at the mill. And when I came back out, I ran into these two guys that were talking, and one of them was this old Swedish guy that didn't speak English, and the other one was a younger guy. And he's like, oh, are you lost? And I'm like, no, I'm here with Aurion. We're supposed to be taking pictures. And it turns out the older gentleman ran the hydroelectric plant there. There's a very small one where the dam was, ran the mill. And the younger guy was a blacksmith. And he actually let me go in and take some pictures of him as he was making some of his things. And so I've got this picture that I love of him just holding his thing, kind of working on it. And it's just, it's beautiful to me, so.
Did you have any favorites?
I think, to me, it's just the experience in the forest is what I always gravitate to over there. So, I don't know if we sent any of them to you or not, but there are some pictures of what was the name? There's a nature reserve that we walked through that was near. So Sweden is covered in forests, but most of it's fairly, tamed by man. It's they very manicured paths and undergrowth and stuff is cleared. But there's one section that is just completely native except for the trail. There's a trail, but the only maintenance is clearing things off the trail. And that place was really interesting. It just felt very ancient and strange.
It did.
What was your overall experience of Swedish culture?
Well, we were there for Midsummer, which is their big holiday. It's kind of the equivalent to 4th of July here. And Aurion actually had us all over to his house, and we decorated and we made flower wreaths and flower headbands, and we all sat down for a traditional Swedish meal, and so we got to really experience that and try the different foods. And they had after that we all walked down to the local motel there, and think it used to be a ski resort, or
Mhm.
maybe still is.
I think it still is in the
It might
winter,
still be,
maybe.
yeah. But so we went there and they did like traditional dances and people with the whole traditional costume on.
Yeah.
And got to be there for that, so that was really cool.
I think I really enjoy Sweden. It's the people in general, and the whole pace of life it's very they're very sort of technologically savvy, and they're very modern, but they're also very kind of quiet, and the pace of life is slower even though it's modern, I feel like. I don't know how to quite explain that, but very I don't know, just a very reserved people generally. And you can walk outside, certainly in the smaller towns where we were, but even in the bigger cities it's just quieter than we're used to, and I enjoy that personally.
So what was something that you learned while you were in Sweden, whether it was in the classroom or just something from traveling abroad?
Well, I had absolutely no experience with darkroom photography, so that was all brand new to me. So that was a great experience. I probably could have told you 1,000 things right after the trip, but there was just a lot of different, because I wasn't used to like being able to like just walk to places that I wanted to go, because like like in Joplin, if I want to walk to school, it's like 3 miles and it's 1,000,000 degrees. Where in Sweden, like it's like half a mile down the road, and like you don't sweat the way. So.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about before we sign off?
I just reiterate that it's great. I mean, take advantage. I hope students take advantage of any opportunity they have to get somewhere. It's one of the great things about this school is that we help people go places. So take advantage of that. I think. I mean, we had 9 students on this trip, and one of them is back over there for a whole year now because of the experience. He wanted to do a whole year studying abroad. So I think that's the main thing. I hope is that people just continue to go out.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you guys on the show, and I hope it sounds like you had a really great time in Sweden. And I want to thank you, listeners, for watching, and I hope that you'll join us next time here on Window on the World. I'm your host, McKinzie Payton, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.